Hi, Sean here from 3M. Thanks for joining me. Welcome to episode 1 of our 3-part series on structural bonding. Let's get started. So before we begin, I just want to be clear that this is a structural part that's been pre-cut for us to use for demonstration purposes only. Okay, in order to talk about structural bonding, we need to first talk about surface prep. So a lot of the prep has been previously done on this part. The welds were removed using a file belt sander and some 60 grit or 80 grit Scotch-Brite sandpaper. So we want to cut those very carefully and not cause any damage to the inner structure. And as you can see here, I can see where the welds were, but I don't have a big divot there or some kind of a depression. I just ground far enough to remove those welds without damaging this inner structure, which is very, very important. We can't damage the structure and have a safe repair. So we need to be careful doing that. Once that's done, I should still have some metal left on each spot. So I'm going to go back and use either a Roloc or a file belt sander and remove that little additional weld nugget from that area. And once all those are removed individually, then I can go back over this with a Roloc with 80 grit or a file belt sander and clean the entire surface to prep that for the adhesive. Once that surface there is prepped and sanded, where all the coatings, corrosion, e-coat, anything in there, adhesive is removed, then I'm ready for that adhesive. The final step would be cleaning. So we would give this a good clean before we go ahead and apply our adhesive. Now on the replacement part, this has also been prepped. I used a Scotch-Brite belt on a file belt sander and removed all the coatings from this flange here. Now the reason we need to do that is this black primer is really only a shipping primer. It's not a true e-coat. So we're better off to remove that down to bare metal and get a really good mechanical bond with our adhesive along with the chemical bond. So one good pro tip I have for you here is I've mentioned the file belt sander a couple times for cleaning off the coatings on these flanges, but if you have a very large panel and you need to get it cleaned off a little bit quicker, this clean and strip wheel works fantastic and is very fast. So you put it in a die grinder, but just make sure it's the correct speed die grinder for the maximum speed for the wheel. And this is going to remove those coatings even faster than the file belt sander. So good tip for you. So we always in these videos tell you what to do, but we don't often tell you what not to do. And we kind of know what those common mistakes are going to be. And one of them that I've seen even on social media, people saying you should use weld-through coating first before you apply your adhesive. Please never do that. That weld-through coating has almost no adhesion properties and the adhesive will not bond well at all. So never use weld-through primer where you're going to use bonding adhesive. Another thing is, especially on these thin panels, do not use an aggressive abrasive. So you want to use something like the Scotch-Brite abrasive on these areas here when you're prepping. This metal is very thin to begin with. If we thin it anymore, it's going to be extremely thin. So use less aggressive abrasive, something like a Scotch-Brite, to remove those coatings and try to keep that total thickness where it belongs on those steel panels. Thanks for joining me for episode 1 in our 3-part series on structural bonding. Join me for episode 2 where I'm going to cover the NVH materials, the foams, and the adhesives. We'll see you then.
If you liked what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next video. If you have questions or have ideas for future topics, leave us a comment down below. If you want more content like this, be sure to check us out at the 3M Collision Repair Academy. The link for that is in the description below. Thank you for watching. See you next time.